All right, thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you, Christine. All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's good to see you all. I sure hope you didn't have too much trouble parking. I didn't know that the Casey Marathon was happening this morning, and so that might have made things a little bit difficult, but I hope not too bad. And actually, before I get into today's reflection, today's talk, I wanted to acknowledge that, I have this unique perspective in which during the week I talk to so many members of the Sangha, and I get to share in so many joys and sorrows, marriages and breakups. We have so many new people coming to the Sangha each and every week, and there's those that are no longer with us. And so I'm just constantly amazed at the magnitude of our community and the richness of it. I know that you don't all have that perspective, but I think you can sense the old saying that a rising tide lifts all boats. As a Sangha, as a community, the incredible work that is being done here and at home on your own. I get to hear stories of awakenings, stories of folks that are wrestling with things that they have the courage to stay with and continue to work with. And it inspires me, and I can see how the entire community is lifted. The energy of those yogis and yoginis and those that are practicing, the energy that is sort of like our chant this morning. As each of us has awakened experiences, we bring that energy and we share it with each other. And so it is really very, very rich and very, very real. I say real, it reminds me, one of my friends in AA told me what sober means, S-O-B-E-R. It stands for son of a biscuit, everything's real. Coming out of that fog of addiction and realizing that everything's real. And it's kind of like that. And yes, sometimes it's incredibly joyous and sometimes it's incredibly painful. And celebrating with each other. For example, our very own Judy. Judy is a member of our Sangha, and it's Eric's wife, our audio-video technician that brings Temple Buddhist Center to the world. His wife just got back from Washington, D.C., where she received an award from the Secretary of the Army, and so a very highly esteemed award. So we have such amazing things going on. Wonderful announcements. I don't know where there she is. Jordan got to announce that we're going to have a new member of Temple Buddhist Center in about 4 months. So yay, Jordan. It's very exciting. So I just wanted to bring that up as just a way to share this with you. I don't want it all to myself. I want to share this with everybody I talk to, just the incredible joys and the power of Sangha. So here we are practicing together in sacred Sangha. And what is it we are practicing? Is it wise view? Is it wise understanding? Wise mindfulness? Are we practicing meditation? Are we practicing the Dharma? Or maybe applying the Dharma in daily life? And yes, it may be all those things, but I can hear my teacher's voice in my ear. And it was always so simple. We're practicing awareness. Awareness. Each and every moment offers so many fascinating opportunities to become aware of what is arising. What is it that we are releasing, and what is it that is emerging in our spiritual lives, in our spiritual practice? The Buddha taught that what we are seeking is seeking us. If we could just stop and give it time to find us. but we're oftentimes running far ahead of it. The Native Americans used to have a saying, slow down so your spirit can catch up to you. So I would add that as we bring awareness to our inner landscape and also a playful curiosity, we shine the light of self-inquiry and an awareness as to the nature of our mind and the nature of our relationship in this moment to what we are experiencing moment by moment as they come and they go. And as students on the path, as practitioners, we understand that it is a human propensity to ruminate. A great teacher used to say that worry is an abuse of imagination. And we understand that we run videos in our head over and over about something that's about to happen or something that may have happened in the past. And we are constantly running these videos of some future engagement, which of course creates anxiety in us. And it is our attachment to our beliefs and our paradigms, attachment to our roles and our stories that creates frustration. And it is our identification with form, being caught up in our stories, that perpetuate ignorance. Not ignorance in sort of the Western connotation, which is you don't know something. It's similar, but in the Buddhist practice, ignorance is more of being caught up in our stories, beliefs, and paradigms. We are ignorant of reality as it is. And so all of these things that ruin our day, we think, however, that instead it is our supervisor, our neighbor, our classmate, a partner, a family member, or some perceived external circumstance. And this is a familiar refrain. It's all, if only the world would do what I need it to do, then everything would be all right. Or if this person hadn't said that or done that, we're constantly blaming and judging outside of ourselves as well as inside, and judging ourselves as well. As I was saying, a familiar refrain. One of my teachers used to say, in a war zone, when we are in a war zone, it is in this moment that one person is caught up and devoured by bitterness and hatred, and another person is caught up in bringing blankets and medicine and food and a smile. And so, this war zone of all these content of our lives going on, then it is this moment that we refrain. And so today I'm playing with this word refrain, both in terms of the familiar refrain of the stories that we get caught up in that are conditioned patterns of speech and behavior, and our ability to refrain. So I'm playing with these, which is hence the title of the talk today. And the Buddha also went on to say that as long as the poisons of the kleshas, which are ignorance, attachment, and aversion, as long as the poisons of the kleshas remain in our mind, we will not find happiness anywhere we go or in anything that we do. So of the 3 teachings from the Buddha on working with the poisons, the first teaching is refraining. Refraining. Specifically refraining from reacting. Refraining from punishing self and others. And I will go into more depth on that. However, I want to go ahead and finish this out. The second of the teachings is to realize that there are no bad emotions. There are no wrong emotions. There are certainly, of course, unpleasant emotions. And even though these can be unpleasant and even painful, these emotions bring for us a message of awakening. They bring a gift. And the third teaching is using the emotions as a direct path to awakening. So the theme of our reflection together today is refraining and learning to refrain. So I'll be talking specifically about the first teaching on working with the kleshas, or the poisons that prevent us from these awakened experiences that I was talking about a moment ago. So we'll be looking at refraining, learning to refrain, and we will emphasize how we do that, especially when we are caught up in stress or reactivity, anxiety, because that's when we most need to pause. And really, pausing is a part of the healthy rhythm of our lives. Pausing is really a way of reconnecting with what Tara Brach, a very popular and famous teacher, likes to share with us. She calls this our being states, not our doing states. We've got plenty of those each and every day. It is those being states, those very essence states that express who we truly are. At one point, a very well-known pianist, Arthur Rubinstein, was asked, "How do you handle all the notes on the piano as well as you do?" And I loved his response. His response was his response was really immediate, and it was passionate. And he said, "I handle the notes no better than many others. But the pauses, that is where the art resides." It's the spaces between the notes that make the notes so beautiful. So refraining does not mean refraining from feeling. This is not escapism. It is refraining from the reactivity of habituated patterns of speech, behavior, those beliefs and those paradigms that we simply fall into automatically, never questioning them. We were talking a while back about this idea of anger. Anger, as most of us know, anger is a secondary emotion, which means that there is an emotion underlying it, but no one wants to feel fear, so we move quickly to anger because anger feels a lot better than fear or helplessness. And anger is the action arm of fear. And what's so fascinating, as we were talking a couple weeks ago, isn't it funny how we feel like we have to be angry to take action? It's true, the anger can arise, and we can purify and release it. And then when we do take action, we come from a place of love and clarity, not hatred, not frustration and anger. So right there you can see where the pause comes in. Yes, I feel anger in the body, remembering that you can't be angry. Who you really are can't be sad, angry, frustrated. You can be aware of anger and frustration in the body, but your consciousness, your awareness is pure and does not suffer those things. And it's who we really are. And so as we bring an awareness to these habituated patterns, because of our tendency to blame, to cling to external focus, we think God hates us because we hit every red light because we're running late. And isn't it funny that that only happens when you're running late? I think Murphy, the guy who wrote Murphy's Law, I think he was a Buddhist. An Irish Buddhist, I guess. We can do that, sure. And so we then attribute all these blame and judgment to all these external things. And these patterns, if we are aware, if we take time to refrain, if we pause, we can find proof that there are patterns. These patterns reveal themselves over time. And it is a beautiful way of seeing how you hear me always say that the universe is madly in love with us and it wants us to wake up. So it continues to put these things in front of us. Oftentimes it's the same thing over and over and over, saying, hey, look here. Here is your door to awakening. But we're too busy blaming the outside world to hear it, to see it, because the voice of love, the voice that the heart uses to speak, is very soft and speaks in a language that we're not even looking for, and in some cases are not quite able to understand it yet. And so while all this stuff is happening to us, the universe is repeating this so that we can see the patterns. And when we see the patterns, we cannot not see the patterns any longer. And we have an awakening. We have an insight, which is why this is called insight meditation, vipassana. So the universe keeps putting it there over and over and over again for us to see it. And in my case, it's again and again and again and again and again. I'm so glad the universe is patient with me. So let's explore the divine sequence for just a moment here. It begins with most likely a childhood experience. Something happens that is very painful for us. And when we are young, and because we do not have the skills to cope with or manage this experience, it becomes trapped energy. It gets stuck. And it becomes an energy knot. And this develops and draws more experiences like that one to us, because what we fear, we manifest. We do not attract what we want. We attract what we are. And so as we continue to work with these energy knots, as we purify and release them, as we bring insight and become aware of the patterns, then this is an opportunity that leads us to great awakenings. Or, if we don't see the patterns, it can lead to great destruction. And many of us have experienced that. That's that moment of sweet surrender where we have not seen it and it keeps happening over and over and over again, and we give up and we are defeated and we fall to our knees. And it's in that moment where we begin asking different questions. And we begin looking in different places. This is the tremendous gift of the pain and the suffering itself, is it brings us to this point where we have to pause. We must stop. Another example, a little closer to home. As an only child myself, and my mother was caught up in addictions, and my father was only home 5 days a month because he was a traveling salesman. And so I would begin, as other people in my life would come and go, I would begin to believe that it was because of something that I was saying or that I was doing that people seemed to be leaving me constantly, were not involved in my life. And so I developed a very strong people-pleasing tendency. I became very effusive in my reactions to folks in conversation, very animated, very gregarious, if you will. And as an adult and as a practitioner, I have come to see these patterns for what they are. Simply a survival mechanism is all it is. However, these patterns created a lot of suffering in my life, suffering for myself and for others, and especially in my marriage. This suffering became so intense that it led to that release, that surrender. It brought me to my knees. Everything fell apart because it was an illusion all along, wasn't it? You see, it was an illusion. The people pleasing, if I can make you happy, you won't leave me. But it's an illusion because it's not possible for me to make you happy. Because happiness isn't out there. It's not another person, place, or thing. So the illusion eventually crumbled. And with it, everything else in my life crumbled. And that's when I began realizing that it was all an illusion, and I started asking different questions and looking in different places. And so right there is where our practice kicks in, because there are not only those childhood traumas, but all the traumas since childhood up to this date, right? And when we place a wedge of awareness, when we pause, when we refrain from the reactivity, it is in that moment that we can see the reactivity. But if we are caught up in it, you're caught up in it. You can't be aware of something you're in. You can be aware of something when it is right in front of you, but not when you are caught up in it. And so when we place a wedge of awareness in those sequences and those patterns I was talking about a moment ago, we embark on a path of purification. Buddhism is a wisdom tradition. Wisdom is in the body. We're not purifying the mind. We can reframe our perceptions, but what we're purifying and releasing is the energy knot, the pain, the suffering. And when we release that, then our perceptions and our thoughts all begin to change. This is why there's a Buddhist temple inside of a unity temple, because in unity, they have this belief, change your thoughts, change your world. So we have many similarities with unity. So whenever we are angry, lonely, annoyed, stop. Stop and practice refraining. Instead of barreling ahead and reverting to old patterns of blaming and judgment or otherwise avoiding what we are feeling completely, we allow space. We slow down the reactivity. The practice of refraining is not to hide or run away from unpleasantness. We are so used to everyone around us acting out, speaking out, that when we refrain from doing so, we may feel like we are avoiding things, that we might actually feel like, oh, maybe I should face it. It's going to, in other words, it feels awkward. It is out of the normal. This isn't what I normally do. Exactly. That's the point. It is the refrain that helps us to see the habituated patterns of speech and behavior. And so I wanted to share today with you this idea of pausing and refraining. How we look at things makes all the difference. If we approach refraining as a means of shutting down, then it can easily turn into that. But if we approach refraining as a way of opening up and becoming more accepting of whatever arises, then this practice will serve us well. Think of refraining from speaking and acting as becoming familiar with the transformative energy of emotions. Since our mind tends to get stuck in repetitive patterns easily, we usually react to new experiences in the same old predictable way that we have always reacted in. So we reinforce those habits by repeating them over and over. A familiar refrain. But if, on the other hand, we apply a wedge of awareness, we will not react in the usual way, and we can allow the experiences to simply pass through us. If we do this often enough, we can exhaust the karmic tendencies, the karmic patterns, the conditioned patterns of speech and behavior altogether. And from that point, things can become quite magical. And so I want to close with this poem by Judy Brown called Fire. What makes a fire burn is space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight, can douse the flame almost as surely as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention to the spaces in between. A fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way.